Let's look at intergenerational dynamics. You know, today, when we talk about a transaction involving Generation Y, you know, some of the things that we know about them is they have a measure of patience. They have they insist on confidentiality as a very, very important aspect of any transaction that you're doing. So that who want you, if you have a transaction, then you get excited and mention that transaction in either social media or any other platform, or even address the media in relation to that transaction. They will not take it kindly. In fact, it immediately ruins the trust in that relationship. Compare that with Generation X. Gen X have loyalty at the heart of what they consider important in transactions. They look at the stability of the transaction. They look at the formality in the transaction. Compare that again with Gen Z. Now, the Gen Z look more at the impact, they look at the speed, they look at the authenticity. Now, these are people who are doing transactions, but the only difference between them in terms of is the generational differences. We must have those at the back of our minds. And it could be you, the advocate, who is the younger person, therefore, in the Gen Z bracket, or you are the client because you've inherited somebody has inherited a huge oil family office business in Saudi Arabia. And so suddenly they are controlling billions of dollars. I mean, their perspective must change. I mean, must inform the transaction, irrespective of what we think about it, because they're a key or a principal actor in those transactions. Now, how do we navigate those environments? So, just as part of tips that we would be able to take into consideration as we deal with intergenerational concerns are maybe to our younger colleagues. We must get into transactions with the attendant respect, so that if you get into a transaction with a professor, it will not take anything from you to say Professor so and so. There are people you would be referring to as Mr. So and so, because that is sometimes also a measure of indication of respect. And there are people who, when you come in with that sort of, and remember I told you about Gen Y, they are very big about titles. Gen Z may not be big about titles, but now when you come in and you have a transaction with them and you tell them, hey, George or Karen, but somebody says they like being referred to as Professor so and so, Professor Doctor so and so, then you may just
see how Mr. Once has reacted to that.
Yes, yes. So
yes, because you remember at some point during the hearing of Gashagwa,
yes,
there's a young lawyer who said, I hope when you guys retire at the end of the day.
Yes.
You know, he said when you guys retire at the end of the day.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. So when you guys, and everybody took issue with the use of the word "you guys," and they said guys don't exist in courts, and so irrespective of what you're saying, the point was lost in you guys. You know. So it then is important that we then have an appropriate language, give respect in the traditional sense where it is supposed to be given. Now, the second thing is that we must be able to signal the seriousness of our understanding of that transaction by just demonstrating a mastery. You know, when you get into a room and you're the youngest person and everybody's wondering, do you really have your facts right? I think we must always seize the opportunity to be able to speak to transactions beyond what you have on the table. You know, if it's a transaction that is touching on something, say, in being purchased in China through Russia and the US, this person should be able to, you know, the young person, or indeed any other person for that matter, should be able to very easily and with confidence oscillate between the implications of the tariffs. You know, yesterday, the tariffs in relation to Russia changed. Somebody should be able to speak to that. Those are the things that build confidence. When you're talking to an industry, you know, energy, you say, oh, you know, in Kenya, the government is now looking at the least cost energy forms. So if you want to get into maybe a solar energy transaction, Maybe not quite, because that is number 4 in terms of the least cost of energy matters. So you then ask yourself, oh, so where did this person get to understand that? And they should be able to, with authority, tell you that that is available in the survey reports, it's available in documents from the Ministry of Energy. There's the hierarchy, there's the hierarchy of, preferred sources of energy. So when you give those sort of examples, when you speak to experience, it puts parties in a place of very, appropriate measures or extents of comfort. Now, we must also exercise patience when we're dealing with transactions, and patience at all levels, because sometimes when you appear overly enthusiastic in a transaction, people stop to wonder, what is this? Have you outmaneuvered us? It almost brings an element of doubt. Is there something that we have forgotten? Why are you suddenly in a hurry? Sometimes it is helpful to say, ladies and gentlemen, where we have gotten to, we'll document it, but shall we meet tomorrow so that we come and conclude? If you're seen to be saying, let's open and shut it today, somebody might be, asking themselves, is there something we're not seeing? Is there an interest? Yes. Even if not personal interest, is it that we've been so badly out negotiated or outmaneuvered in this matter that they want to close this deal yesterday? Because people will be coming into a transaction saying, we're going to push them. Then you come in and say, but from where we sit, this truly is a deal. So if you just immediately say, deal, let's shake hands, then you may end up now raising fears and anxiety, which are perhaps not necessary. And it is simply because you've shown over enthusiasm in relation to closing of that transaction. Again, those are things that experience will teach you, but which you may not quite see in a day-to-day classroom, in a day-to-day contract. Now, the reverse. How about the older generation dealing with the younger generation? We must never mistake age for inexperience or incompetence, because there are instances where, say, you're dealing with technology. You may have been the senior most advocate in the country, dealing with all the complex transactions. But what experience would you say you have in technology that is so superior that the young person would be grossly disadvantaged? In fact, technology on that equation would be a real disadvantage to you, because sometimes we see it even in court. When you avail a case where somebody, you have a senior on the one hand trying to struggle to look for the microphone in the document, the younger advocate is in his authority number 3, and they're just scrolling in and going, and they're wondering, the advocate is on the other side is saying, you did not serve us, but
Or the CTS,
or the CTS, the use of CTS. You did not serve us. They say, hey, there's an affidavit in your email. One time the senior is asking the assistant, where's our email? What are we served, Yeah. And so we should never imagine or mistake age to be a measure of inexperience or incompetence. We should also not forget that sometimes patience is not necessarily a virtue. I told you about Gen Zs and how they want the things. I remember what we traditionally say, kama sio sasa, ni sasa hivi. Yes, they want this thing. Let's come and get over and done with this thing. So when you're telling them, let's meet next week on Friday, you've lost that client, because they're coming in, they fly into the country, they have 1 hour to come and close the transaction because they want to go and have a party in Mombasa for 1 week. So you think that they were coming into Kenya primarily for the transaction, but the understanding is that this transaction need not take more than 1 hour. What is this big thing that you want to try and a lot of what you call English, Sometimes we must then appreciate that if you take too long, then you may lose them in the context of you taking too much time. They also would not be very comfortable with us introducing procedural red tape. We must then ask ourselves, are we going into too much formality that is not adding value to the transaction? There are times when you say, let's have a cup of tea, deal with this thing. You have a conversation, it could be in a coffee shop. It is your responsibility to carry whatever conversation has been had in that coffee shop so that you go and reduce it to an email and share it across board. So those sort of flexibilities must always be there.